Okay, so I thought I should make this announcement really quick since I've been promoting this for several months. Some of you guys that have been watching my videos pretty regularly may know that I've been promoting an OnlyFans account that I made for the past few months, but recently I deleted the account. My content just isn't good for that platform, so I decided to stop going forward with it. Just thought I would say that so that you don't wonder why I'm not talking about it at the end of videos anymore. That said, I did bite the bullet and I made a TikTok. I use TikTok for some funny skit-like videos, and I also do short single reviews on there as well. Basically, in terms of extra reviews, it's kind of what I was doing on the OnlyFans, but now, of course, because it's TikTok, I do it for free. You don't have to pay anything for it. I won't be promoting it as aggressively as I promoted the OnlyFans. I won't be talking about it at the end of every single solitary video, but I will, of course, have the link in the description if you want to go follow me and check out my funny skits or potential track reviews or other short things like that. This is just a side project to go along with the YouTube channel. Thought I would mention it here in case you guys were interested. Now, on to what you actually came here for. Welcome back to 10 Years Later, the series where I talk about albums from the 2010s that were either impactful to me, impactful to music in general, very popular, or just worth revisiting 10 years later for good or bad reasons. And this is an album I was very interested in going back to. As you can tell from the title, the album that we'll be talking about today is the 2011 Tyler, the Creator record, Goblin. Tyler, the Creator, you guys know him by this point. He's a California rapper who blew up in the 2010s with his collective Odd Future, who he was the pseudo-leader of. After blowing up on his own with his 2009 mixtape Bastard, this was his debut studio album, and much like Bastard, it was a very controversial release. If you're someone who got into Tyler, the Creator with records like Flower Boy and Igor like I did, you might not know that his older music was very provocative. His blend of hip-hop sounded very much like horrorcore, even though throughout this record he expressed some discomfort with being labeled as horrorcore, and his lyrics were as dark and insensitive as they come. Graphic depictions of violence and sexual assault against women, massive amounts of homophobia, the list could go on and on. To be honest, as much as Eminem gets heat for his lyrics, Tyler's bars made Eminem look like a saint in comparison. Now, as I said, I got into Tyler's music with his more recent catalog, so I missed out on the era where he was pissing everybody off. I was interested in returning to that era and seeing what it was all about, though I definitely had my worries going into the record. For starters, the album is 18 tracks stretching just under an hour and a half. That's an unwieldy length for any artist, no matter how good or bad they are, and it's quite a lot for a debut album. On top of that, I've done some reading online and found that Tyler himself just straight up hates this album. He said that he doesn't regret making it and that it'll be a good footnote in his career, but he has noted that he thinks it's trash. Having listened to it, I don't necessarily think it's trash, but I don't totally disagree with his self-assessment. While there are a few great moments, this is a record that has obviously aged like a carton of milk that's been left sitting out for the entire night. One unfortunate thing that drags it down quite a bit is that a number of tracks are just way too long. The title track Goblin opens the album in a very cinematic way with super minimal tiptoeing instrumentals that see Tyler just bearing it all. In a way, the track feels like a therapy session with Tyler trying to figure out himself and his image with his alter ego Dr. TC, who feels like his therapist. I love Tyler's flow and his hard-hitting performance on the song, and I think his dark, brooding lyricism is definitely interesting, if obviously dated, though I think the song feels a bit unwieldy. At 6 minutes and 49 seconds, it goes on a bit longer than it should, and I think the conversations with Dr. TC can unfortunately feel pace-breaking. I found myself tuning out when Tyler would speak to his therapist, but then get excited when he went back to rapping. Radical sees Tyler giving a disclaimer that his music is fiction, which just feels a bit too on the nose for me. And this is another song that kind of struggles for the same reasons. At over 7 minutes, it's definitely longer than it should be, and I wish there was more spitting on the song. A lot of it is the chorus, which works for what it's going for, but isn't all that interesting, and a lot more empty space where Tyler just kind of rambles his thoughts. Again, his flows are great when he does rap, but he doesn't do it all that much, and given how minimal the beat is, it's not like he's creating more of an atmosphere than anything else on the album. Fish is another example of this. I do like some of the electronic sounds of the instrumental, and Tyler knows how to kill this beat with his flow. I was also very happy to hear Frank Ocean on the bridge, but the lack of a hook makes it feel like he's just fucking around a bit too much. And not even the more bouncy second part, Boppin' Bitch, was able to move the needle for me. It was just a bit more laughably bad than anything. Window is a track that features Domo Genesis, Frank Ocean, Haji, and Mike G, who are essentially staging an intervention with Tyler. I do think that Tyler's fellow Odd Future members do a solid job with their performances, as does Tyler himself with his very aggressive verse. But once again, the song feels like it's way too long. I got to Mike G's verse and couldn't believe I had 5 minutes of song left. I don't mind a track that has this type of length, length, but given that the instrumental is so skeletal and light, it makes the song feel like a bit of a drag. Even some of the shorter tracks have their issues. Transylvania leads heavily into the misogynist themes that Tyler's been dealing with throughout the album, as he enters a character that almost feels like Dracula. Tyler's filtered vocals work for the dark tone of the song, but this is another one of those tracks that honestly just kind of drags, surprising given that it's only about 3 minutes. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the way his vocals are mixed with the beat that just kind of feels off to me. I know the intent of this music isn't to be catchy, but it feels hard to properly enjoy it. The rough aesthetic is decent, but here it's just not as captivating as it should be. Tron Cat feels like a very jarring freestyle with these weird keys and Tyler just spitting flows without any real stopping point. I do think his performance is impassioned and I think his talents are on full display, but yeah, I can see why people call this album dated because only 7 tracks in, I was tired of him throwing out every offensive line that he could. At a point, it kind of stopped being shocking, especially when he had to take moments in the song to apologize for being offensive. I get what he was going for, but it's just too heavy-handed. Sandwiches was the first single released from this album, and it came complete with one of the wildest single covers I've ever seen in my life. I can't show it on YouTube, but have fun looking it up, so long as you are of age. As for the song itself, the production is extremely trippy, and I love how Tyler's flow is always moving in so many interesting directions. Haji also proves to be a good presence, but I wish the song had a better chorus. Not all repetitive hooks are bad, but this one feels like it lacks an interesting enough structure to make it stick. There's also Bitch Suck Dick, which, yeah, I guess if you like So Bad It's Good music, you'll enjoy it. Otherwise, yeah, it's pretty laughable. The song features Tyler rapping alongside fellow Odd Future members Jasper Dolphin and Travis Taco, but the flows sound like they were meant for a completely different instrumental. The over-the-top beat doesn't mix well with their flows, and it just sounds like a parody of itself. There are definitely highs on the album, though, and those highs are pretty brilliant. Yonkers was the one song from this thing I had heard prior to listening to the entire record. I also got to watch the excellent music video, and it's still a pretty great track. Yes, like many songs on here, the lyrics are painfully dated. The constant use of certain dated slurs, those lines about Hayley Williams, B.O.B., and Bruno Mars, yeah, it's dated. But Tyler delivers them with such confidence, and his aggression and ability to push the boundaries keeps you listening. Also, the beat on this one, let's not pretend it doesn't go unbelievably hard, because it does. She is another moment of genius on this record. The song has this relaxed, almost electronic neo-soul vibe where Frank Ocean comes in and brings his usual smooth, lovely vocals, and then Tyler comes in and juxtaposes him with very dark and disturbing lyrics about stalking a girl. He delivers them in a much calmer way, which is interesting as it almost creates this persona that he's just stone cold. It's not for the faint of heart, of course, but I see why this has become one of the more liked songs on the album. Nightmare also works for how chill and almost soulful the instrumental is. The production has a few glimmering sounds to it up against the smooth pianos, and Tyler spits in a rather relaxed way about how Famous changed him. It's definitely one of the most compelling and complete tracks on the album. Her is wildly different than a lot of what else is here. Instead of getting into very dark, triggering fantasies, Tyler instead talks about a girl that he really likes and how he genuinely wants to date her, until he finds out that she got back with her previous dude. Outside of maybe 1 or 2 lines, this is probably one of the least dated songs on the album lyrically, and it does actually feel pretty romantic. The beat is very simple, but it has a bit of a smooth vibe, and Tyler sells it pretty well. Analog has some surprisingly sunny sounds, almost like it creates a vibe of laying by a pier or lake with someone you love on a summer night. Haji takes a bit more of the lead on this one, and his voice actually helps to make this feel more like an R&B jam. It's another track that probably has some darker themes hidden behind it, but it comes across a lot nicer than some of the other songs on here, and I kind of like it for that. Sadly, the album ends off a bit disappointingly. AU-79, a name that references the periodic table's symbol and atomic number for gold, is one of the many examples of an entirely instrumental song showing up on a Tyler record. I don't mind these instrumental-only songs, and this one does sound very nice and lush, almost like the type of thing you can hear in a cartoon, but personally, I don't know how much it adds to the record. It's not like Enjoy Right Now Today off of Flower Boy, where I feel like it adds to the theme or grabs me a lot. It's just a decent instrumental track, though it does lead a bit fittingly into the closer of the standard edition of the album, Golden. This is another track that plays into the therapy session vibe of the album, with Tyler bearing his soul to Dr. TC over another reverb-heavy dark beat. Once again, I love Tyler's performance, but I think Dr. TC's appearances on the song break the pace for me. I see what Tyler wanted to do and it fits for the album's story, but it's just not fully clicking with me. There are also a few bonus tracks on the record, but sadly they don't make things all that much better. Burger serves its purpose with the same type of reverb-heavy dark beat that Tyler is known for, but obviously it doesn't really add much to the record's story. It does what a number of the other tracks do, and while it's fine, it's just not all that memorable, and I wish Haji's hook was more interesting. Untitled 63 is another instrumental-only track, and at just over a minute long, it's far and away the shortest song on the record. While I like the jazzy feel of the drums and the pianos, this is another cut that does little more than bridge the gap between Burger and the Deluxe Edition's closer, Steak Sauce. This is a freestyle that's pretty much exactly what you'd expect out of Tyler. He goes hard with a very aggressive performance. His lyrics sound like they were written specifically to be dated. The beat just kind of fades into the background. It's sadly not as exciting as it could have been. Overall, yeah, age has not been all that kind to this album. Lyrically, what more needs to be said about it? Its shock value turned up to a degree where after a while it just stops being shocking, and it definitely reads like Tyler being the 19 to 20-year-old that he was at the time. Now granted, there are flashes of brilliance on the album, and Tyler manages to sell quite a few songs with slick flows and strong technicality, but at times the album can feel like a series of litmus tests to determine how many times you can hear a homophobic slur, a Nazi reference, or a reference to violence against women before you just want to get out. Production-wise, the beats are good, though they can get a bit repetitive since they often follow a lot of the same formulas, and there are a lot of times where it feels like Tyler's just fucking around. I do like the concept and story he goes for, but a lot of the moments of him bringing in his therapist or having to explain that his stuff is fiction just kind of turn me off. There are good ideas floating around on here, but it can't help but feel like the 2011 relic that it is. Back in 2011, I'm not sure I would have understood this album. Even though I listened to someone like Eminem, I feel like this would have been a bit too much even by those standards. Listening to it now, I feel like it's a deeply conflicted album with occasional moments of genius wrapped in a very dated package. If I had to put it on my scale, it's honestly kind of hard. I feel like it would probably get a bad rating from me. I wanted to give it an okay for those moments of occasional genius, but the album's unwieldy length and very aged content make it a bit harder to enjoy. I'm sure some people still enjoy it, but I can see why Tyler doesn't like it as much now. But that's just my opinion on this record. What did you guys think about it? Did you listen to it back in 2011? Do you still listen to it now? Did you love it back then? Hate it back then? Do you still love it now? Do you still hate it now? Are you just completely indifferent towards it? Whatever your thoughts and opinions are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe and support some of my other ventures that I have linked down in the description, thank you. If not, it's no big deal. I totally understand. And moving right along, the next album that I'm going to be talking about in 10 years later is Lady Gaga's Born This Way. I know that was a pretty huge record, so I'm very interested in checking it out myself. So stay tuned for that, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.